to being the real Jews, the Sephardim, Spanish Jews. If you look at the Palestinians and Israelis, they are the same people and both speak Arabic and Hebrew, live on the same strip of land. They fight and are separated by religious beliefs. More and more scientists are revealing the truth of the doctrine, of our doctrine. They admit that the obelisks are antennas and the tallest obelisk is in Azum, Ethiopia. It has been said a warner or savior has been sent to every people. One did, and Chin Wu were extraterrestrials sent from Asia. Doctrine. The extraterrestrial are giving us the information about who is who on the planet Earth, so that it would be clearly shown that no one could have given us this information about genetic traits and markers about each race. Every week, Planet Babylon reveals something else. For example, Aborigines have 3 lines or indents below the brow. East Indians have a dimple in the chin. Each race has a unique trait. Natural nature versus unnatural nature. If I say to you, I want to inspire you, what do you think that means? It means I want to put a spirit in you. A spirit, accepted or not, is natural nature. Think of it this way. The Mukasu are not natural, although they are created from natural nature. A spirit is inside something of natural nature, yet it is not of natural nature. Spirits also cannot cross over salt water. It has something to do with the iodine. Now you have what is called pure spirit, which would include a Holy Spirit and unholy spirit. Yet they do not want to admit that because they do not know the difference between a possession is taking place like during a church service. What good spirit has you rolling all over the floor and foaming at the mouth? You have beings that come in the night and are referred to as incubi and succubi and arouse or seduce the women and men who are actually graves. The Gigi was assigned to Earth as their watch station, and that this is what the name means. They violated the first rule and came down to Earth and had sex. Some beings live in the water, some in the air, some under the earth, as it says the Adamites not to make an image or anything under the water in the heavens or on the earth. Exodus 20, verse 4. Thou shalt not make unto any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. The graves were given a tribe abode past, which is why they were in all 3 places. We are dealing with graves groups from Rigu, El Netat, etc. Right. That's, Orion star constellation, just to put that out there. Groups of graves collect genetic materials because they make hybrid children because they don't feel. That is why they are succubi and incubi, because they arouse people in their sleep to extract bodily fluids such as adrenaline, DNA from semen and ovaries to create hybrids to live here on the earth amongst people. There are people in Africa called the Sand people, who are the Tahites of Botswana, and you have the Kalahari Bushmen, who are of Zimbabwe. These people have all the genetic markers that you see as traits in the human race. They have the nappy hair of Negroids, the slanted eyes of the Asians, the 3 marks in the brows of the Aborigines, and the chin of the Indians. The first race was Negroids, have 9 species and seeds. The next race is Aborigines and Dravidians, who have 8. And the Asians have 7 species. The Caucasus women have 6. The Caucasus man have 5. There's another species that have 4, yet I will not mention that now. The more number of the spiritual seed, the less spiritual. The less number of the spiritual, the more spiritual. As you have noticed, the Asians that have the least number, yet are the most spiritual people. And that was the update last week.
reread on the lesson?
Anthony?
A reread on the lesson.
That might not be happening. Reread the lesson. You want a particular verse?
First reading.
You said what happened?
The first reading.
Okay, he wants to reread the why. Okay.
No, never mind.
Okay, we got the system back with the question.
Is it me? We just were trying to get a little clarity on the seats that you were saying, less spiritual, more spiritual. Did you read that part again?
I gotta read the explanation. The first race was Negroes, had 9 species and seats. The next race is the Aborigines and the Dravidians, who have 8, and the Asians have 7 species. The Caucasian woman has 6, the Caucasian man has 5. There's another subrace species that has 4, yet I will not mention that now. The more number of spiritual seats, the less spiritual. The less number of spiritual seats, the more spiritual. As you have noticed, the Asians have the least number, yet are most spiritual as a people. So, pretty much what that's saying is, right, is we know we as Nagaros are non-ether, right? We are the highest, right? And, I mean, pretty much, we're already there. We're already there. One thing that Paa Parar mentioned in the past, right, he said dealing with the chi, or the chakras, right? He said ours is already up as Nagaros. We don't have to raise ours up. They do. They are further out when it comes to the planes, right? So they have to reach for more. So they are more spiritual. Opposed to us, we have a Ba. All races don't have the Ba. So dealing with the 7 ether, because Ba starts there, right? So they have the ability to become more spiritual. So they have to exercise it more than we do as Nagaros, because we are already there. Any more? We got a question in the back. I tell you. You said, I can't hear you.
Obelisk. It's in reference to the obelisk. I think it's the second sentence.
You said the obelisk?
The obelisk.
Oh, the obelisk. Oh, I'm sorry. The obelisk, okay. Right. Current events. More and more scientists are revealing the truth of our doctrine. They admit the obelisks are antennas, and the tallest obelisk is in Azum, Ethiopia. Right. And one of the reasons why he was mentioning that was because in an update, he was going into, now when you watch television, right, and you watch the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, you see all of our doctrine in there. You see that everything that Paa Parar has been telling us over the last 40, 50 years, they teach like it's okay, like it's them coming out with it. He said, so we have to start spreading the doctrine faster. We know he's been talking about these things for years, you know, but now when you watch, they talk about the Bigfoot, they talk about the Anunnakis now, you know, and not just, so they've been talking about the Anunnakis, but not the way they're talking about them now. Not in, they're taking our doctrine and they're making movies from them, They taking our doctrine, they making shows from them, they market it. You know, when the sisters go visit Pops, they be like this. When doctrine come, they gotta get on that phone. Cause hey, that's the new movie that's gonna come out next year. You know, that's a new script. You know, so they're constantly stealing our doctrine. You know. So that was he's always said that about the obelisk, the one in Ethiopia. Because remember, right, the reason why that has to be specified is because they tried to deny pre-dynastic Egypt. And most of our Salafi, right, that we see, right, the statues and things like that of the deities, right, goes back to pre-dynastic times, right, dealing with northern Egypt and southern Egypt, which we know it was actually opposite. But it goes back into Napata or Nubia, right? And they want to deny Sudan, they want to deny what was called Upper Egypt, right? They want to deny that and act like there was nothing there, because when they go back to the ancient city of Meroe and Napata, they see the ruins go back further than Egypt itself, than modern day Egypt, than the obelisk that's there in the valleys of the kings and all the other places that they push. When you go back to where the Napatas live, you see the brazen hair, you see the black skin, everything is there. They got the oldest star maps that exist, the Neptupli. So it's something that we have to take into consideration, because Ethiopia was a part of that original land. You know, so they don't want to expose, right, all the different artifacts. They're trying to destroy all that right now in Sudan and Ethiopia, Eritrea, all those places in that lower land. And they just want to expose you to what they want to expose you to, which is just modern day Egypt, or Cairo in particular. So that's kind of why I was kind of emphasizing.
I have, just a moment, please. I have two more questions.
Two more.
Yes, well, okay. The second one is in reference to, you said about spirits once they cross over the sea, the salt. Could you expound on that a little bit more, please?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna let you know right now with the big, you know when you write I, right, and then you got the I with the dot, and then you got the I with the big I, the capital I. Right. Yeah. I don't know. That's the big I don't know right there. But I will reread it for you. That's something that we have to wait for the master teacher to expound more on. But it's a question that we will try to send in and ask him. Think of it this way. The Mukasu are not natural nature, although they are created from natural nature. A spirit is inside something of natural nature, yet it is not of natural nature. Spirits also cannot cross over salt water. It has something to do with the iodine. The brochure.
Update.
The brochure that was put out last week, that was read, that's what that was. That brochure. There was a brochure that was out. Did y'all get the brochure? Y'all didn't read it. Do y'all want me to go? Yeah, I think they was passing them out.
We got copies.
Do y'all want me to go over it? I think it's important to read. All right.
No, if they pass out.
So this one was for last visit. Go on.
Okay, with the brochure, I'm gonna go over the brochure. It's not that long. What is that brochure? trying to pull it up right now. Trying to find this. Got like 1,000 emails. Okay. It's coming. Okay, the brochure. Nuwapian ethics. We live for, of, and by each other, and not for, of, and by others. We seek to subjugate, control, and enslave us both mentally and physically for our souls. We as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not succumb to the public media and disagreeable advertisements. 2, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not succumb to the public media and its lustful suggestion entertainments. 3, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not succumb to any religious and political domination or parties based on the Adamite Bible or Quran or judicial system in the West, where we have been held since, been kidnapped, enslaved, abused, and tortured by them. We as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not live by their racism, prejudice, phobias, or other prejudgment of others. 5, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not live by heathenism, barbarianism, uncivilized, primitive, and intensely. I don't even know if I'm saying that word right. Adamite race and their minions. 6, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not live in or take part in any unclean, unsafe, or unhealthy environments. 7, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not use drugs or become drunk or intoxicated or use drugs that medicate and impure our clear thinking of any kind or substance that impedes our judgment. 8, we as Nuwapians, we as Nuwapians of Wunuwap do not engage in any games of chance, sports, or dangers to our persons or others living creatures, or persons such as hunting for sport, games of rivalry, competition, or gambling. We do not play games and sports for amusement and fun, not for self-gain or ego, to win over others, yet only for equal joy. We, Nuwapians of Wunuwap, do not live by the arrangements, belief, conclusion, lies, broadcasting, their amendments, adjustments, and settlements. We know that they will say anything except the actual facts. They uncover facts and change them before they are made public. We do not live by their employments or jobs. We do not live by their employment or jobs that makes us subject to their management, putting them over our livelihood, not by their religious Bible commandments. We see how they use and abuse sub-races to do their wickedness for their minions, of which they, the Adamites, don't really live by, obey, or respect, as they use others as tools, weapons, and crash dummies. Truth is truth, facts are facts. No faith can change facts. Nuwapian ethnic too. First and foremost, we as Nuwapians live for, of, and by each other, the human race. 1, we Nuwapians understand human race are really men. The races are running to a goal or finish line. 2, we Nuwapians overstand in this Tapal world. There are many sub-races and all from the first 3 races. The Khanak, black race, Negroids, the Samir, brown race, Indians, the Safir, yellow race, Asians. These are root race and each played by rules of natural nature. We Nuwapians understand that there's also humankind or a kind of race or races. A, the Hamir red race Adamites. B, the Laban white race Canaanites. These are made genetically and the result of the curse of Baras, leprosy, and intermixing yet choosing not to play by the rules of natural nature. The last 2 were made by extraterrestrials from the Pleiadian star system, who are colorless, overseen by the Anunnakis or Anakim. The first one, Adamites, Adamu, who were made in the year 3661 BCE, and the second ones of the first 1 seed were cursed with Baras, seed, leprosy. Together they came up with what they teach the world over as monotheism, which is called Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, a cover for white supremacy called racism. 6, at first they came out of the mountains, caves, hillsides to force themselves upon other 3 Salal races to overpower them. So you have the human race trying to survive the attack of these barbaric human beasts. They murder, rape, plagiarize in the name of their gods, who were carnivorous creatures who could take form or shapeshift. So these Adamites inherit their maker genes and as such act like them. 7, their carnivorous gods came in time to civilize them, gave them laws on stone tablets, later transferred them to scrolls, then translated into other languages, which became books. Then men who really did not know or never saw the originals or were able, or if they did read the originals, which were in cuneiform from Sanskrit, whole new meaning came about, and down through the time because of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and finally the last Testament, the Tanakh, the Gospel, Quran. From these Zazad men who did not understand them wrote more books, such as Talmud, the Apostles, and Hadith, each of which promotes racism and in particularly white supremacy, as they state their God created Adam to look like himself or in my image and after my likeness, and the very name given for the first man according to their Bible was Adam, which means Hebrew, ruddy, blush, reddish, pale skin, or simply Caucasian race or Europeans, who are the 2 red and the white, who are the 2 groups, the red and the white. We Nuwapians understand that to include the Arabs as well, whose in their own hadith claimed their prophets and founder Muhammad was white, reddish, ruddy, making him belong to the red side of the 2 made races. The red and the white races, or Adamites, will do anything to win the race in racism. They spend billions on cinema that promotes their race as superheroes or as kind-given persons such as Santa Claus or saviors as Jesus Christ or angels, all white or reddish ruddy. They were given 6,000 years to exercise this dominion over other races, Hamat, black, Samir, brown, and Safir, yellow, and that ended 2000 AD, or 6,000 years from 4000 BCE, exactly 3761 BCE. According to the Jewish calendar, that is the true meaning of the use of human race. To this very day, the Adamites seek to control the minds, bodies, and souls of other to suppress any who will not accept their race or as winning and not wanting what they offer or believe and what they teach human races should be, the race of human superiority. And that was the end from last week. Anybody had any more questions? Okay, we got two.
Any celebrations like usually, like say.
They coming with the mic. In the front row.
Okay, thank you. Usually there's Savior Day
Tour.
and other celebrations that you celebrate.
Tour.
Oh, what are you gonna do for this summer?
Yes. Yes, there would definitely be a Savior's Day here in New York. Now this is the focal point, the center. There would definitely be the drum ceremony happening going into the 26th, right? We usually start around 12, sometimes we start at 9. On the 25th, going into the 26th, bringing up Atun, Ray. And there will be other events like Mukdamu Zaman, the ancient one days, right? Which we used to call Angels and Prophets Day. You have Paa Parar Zaman, which is Children's Day. There'll be a lot of events that's going to be taking place in the Parar, and y'all be able to see more of the exercise of our culture now that the focal point is here. So there's going to be a lot of things that's going to be happening in this Parar, And I think his brother, yeah.
I was reading the Paa Parar, the mind's eye, the mind's eye.
Tour.
And it was mentioned that we see things that are not really there, and the way our mind may project something that's there that's not really there. Now about extraterrestrials, right? It was saying that if you think you see this, you see it. But what I'm saying is that it was when I was I lived over there on Lorimore when I was about 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
And one evening we was all outside playing around, neighbors sitting outside and everything. And I happened to look up, it was an empty lot across the street.
Right.
And I saw something coming down from the sky. It was like a reddish orange seal.
Right.
I saw it, my mother saw it, everybody saw it.
Right.
So now, and they got scared. Everybody got wonder what it was.
Right.
They didn't know what it was. So what I'm saying is that basically, was that like everybody everybody seeing it all at once? Was it real?
Yes, it was real, because you identified it. You all identified it. And when you go to the Paa Parar, the mind's eye, which I can't seem to find it right now, what it was talking about is that some people are delusional.
Sure.
Right? And because of the way the mind works, you can create something by way of the mind's eye. For example, your dreams. You're creating a whole world. You're creating images, you're creating people, right? And it's a whole reality. You practically live in your dream every night. You go to your dreams every night, right? So in that portion of the book where he was expressing that, it wasn't to say that everything that you see was not real, because that's not the case. But it was to say that sometimes, right, people get a little delusional sometimes. And sometimes it can be your own mind creating those images. You may think you saw something, right? And it can be your mind creating it because the mind has that type of power to create images. And that's what it was mainly expressing. But not to say that if we all sitting here and we see a ghost, I don't know, it don't matter, whatever went by, and everybody's looking, it's quite real that happened. Or if you saw a craft or some type of object, right? And you don't have to be with people all the time, right? You can see it by yourself and know you saw it. You was up, you know you saw it. It confirms more when other people sees it. But it doesn't mean that, you understand what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, this sister right here, she had her hands up before we did the readings. We apologize.
Yes, I'm coming back to the obelisk that you were talking about.
Sure.
I know they did not move one from Egypt and put it in Rome. One of the obelisks they put in Rome by the Vatican. And I would like to know, as they move it, does it still function as an antenna?
Okay. Your question is, the obelisk that they removed to other places, right? Rome being one of them, right? Does it still work as an antenna? That depends, right? And the reason why the reason why I say that is because everything is going to depend on the location, right? This is important. Our ancestors built on ley lines or ley lines. So the particular sites that they chose to build on harnessed energy, right? And those energy was based upon the cycles of time. And when the cycles of time will go out, they will move on to other places. This is why when you go in the world, you see this site, you say, oh, that looked like the Egyptians was over there, or that, you see the Mayans, you see all these different places, right, or these spiritual sites. That's because it was in a different cycles. And they left that portion and they came back. So back then, the pyramids was activated. They were power plants. The obelisks, they were activated. Some of the temples were activated, right? One, because of the type of stones they was made out of, right? The shapes of the stones, right? All that had to do with the activation of the energy. So what happens is, it can activate in Rome, but where they built it, right, was made for a specific time and place and energy. Did that answer your question?
Also, I observed that they put a cross on top of the obelisk that they moved to Rome.
They do it. And you said Rome, I'm not even sure what's particular we're talking about, but they got obelisks everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. They make sure they get it from there, right, from Egypt, right, or from that land, right, from Africa, right, because a lot of times we say Egypt and we forget that Egypt is in Africa. They try to always separate Egypt from being a part of Africa. So they say, we Egyptians. No, you African. And you are Egyptians, right, but you ain't the original Egyptians. You ain't the original people who was there, the original African people who was there on that land. But yeah, they constantly move our stuff. They move our ancestors' bodies from one part of the planet to the next part of the planet, shipping them over to museums. It's just no respect. It's just desecration of our ancestors. And they wonder why every time they go in the tomb, they get cursed. Something happens to them. It's because they have no respect for our ancestors. But now, we come into a time, we're stepping back into that Atum, that Anum, going into Atum, where some of these things will be back activated. The pyramids are going to start being regenerated and start activating again. That's why it's time for us to move from here to over there. But we can't do it by ourselves, because you'll go over there and look like a fool, thinking that you go over there and we have to do it together. We have to unify when we do it. We have to be on one frequency, one tone. Okay, there's a question in the middle.
All right, so
My question is also back before you did the reading, when you were talking about food.
When I was talking about, you said food?
Food, yeah. And you said that we're not supposed to eat things that have parents, right?
Right.
But I was just thinking, like, fruits and vegetables, they have parents, they're organisms. Anything that's an organism on this planet, it comes from something else, therefore it has a parent. So then, what are we supposed to consume if that's the case?
Okay, when the master teacher was referring to that, it was just to refer to flesh. It was referring to flesh, meat, not fruit. Fruits are fruit because they have seeds. And that seed is planted. So it's not that it doesn't have some type of genealogy to it, but in that particular update, he was more referring to, because people was asking questions. Well, when we say we don't eat flesh or start getting away from the flesh, people start asking questions like, well, what about this? And what about that? And it was like, okay, people with parents, meaning, animals, pretty much. That was to say, any animals, don't eat, parents. That's all it was saying, though. But it was something that was in the update. But no, definitely not the vegetables and the fruits. We eat healthy, But like I said, like I was mentioning earlier, right? It wasn't saying go cold turkey. It was saying slowly but surely, if you want to get more spiritual, right? And you want to make sure that those communications are coming through, you have to eat a certain way. We can't just eat fried foods all day or do, whatever type of food we want and expect certain things to happen. So that's all it was in reference to.
Also, who were the first meat eaters, the first omnivores or carnivores?
You said who?
The first meat eaters, the first omnivores or carnivores.
You saying who was?
Who? Yeah.
Oh, as far as what? As far as
As far as just eating meat, like killing animals
Oh,
and eating
I
it.
mean,
like,
well, that's
to start that.
that can go. That question could really go. It could go so far. It can go back to the dinosaurs, right? It can go back to extraterrestrials that was responsible for bringing them here, and other reptile or reptilian races that's responsible for eating meat. Because ultimately, that's why a lot of us eat meat, because we're mixed in with certain species, that was carnivorous eaters. So it's a certain wanting for flesh, that we have inside of us. The Mukasu race is different species of the Caucasoid race. Some original species of the Caucasoid race were not flesh eaters. They were mixed in with certain genes, right, of the wolf, right, that created them to actually want the flesh. And there was and the reason that why they was mixed in, because some of the races or some of the experiments that these extraterrestrials was involved in, right, the Mukasu, they was getting killed off. So they needed to mix certain genes like the porcine. The porcine was mixed in, which is the pig gene. It was mixed in with the Mukasu because they would send them in caves. They would send them to land. They was like slaves. These extraterrestrials were using them for slaves, and they would have them digging in gold, digging for different minerals, and they kept dying. They kept getting sick. So they had to create a gene, right, from an animal, right, that don't get sick when it's exposed to bacteria or when it's exposed to certain elements. It won't get sick. So they mix that genetic inside. They was dying off. Other things that existed on the planet was killing them all. So they put the canine gene in it. So it's so much different experiments that happen, right, of why different people are carnivorous or flesh eaters. It can go back to extraterrestrial. It can go back as simple as the dinosaurs, or just animals, But as far as, we originally did not eat meat as Nagars. They ate meat. The Mukasus, or the Caucasoid race, ate meat because the beings, right, that came down. This is what he was mentioning in the lesson. Those Igigis, those beings who was watching over the planet, right, the watchers, they came down and they took the daughters of Adam, right? They raped them, right? And then they bore Gabors. They bore giants in the earth. And those particular giants have the genetics, right? Now remember, they had to be capable because we're dealing with DNA and RNA, right? We're dealing with genes, right? And what happened was they started killing everybody. Because when those particular cherubims came down, they killed all the men and they raped the women. And so the children came up as giants. So when the other extraterrestrials came and they said, what's going on earth? This is your story in Genesis. This is where your story that's in the Bible comes from. But they took those stories from original stories that was in Sumerian text. Remember, Abraham is Chaldean. He's from the land of Chaldea. This is something that they keep hiding. They keep hiding the book of Enoch. They keep hiding those different books, the book of Jubilee. They don't want to put those books out, although they say, yes, these are original books that belong to the Bible. They know that if people read that book, right, like the Watchers, right, in the book of Enoch, they know, man, we got a lot of explaining to do. Because right here, in these books that we found, that they have on record, they claim that God was a flesh-eating God. That they was eating their children. And they was coming down eating people. So they don't want to expose that to the public as a part of the Bible, although, right, they know it goes back into that day and time. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like the book of Mary and Magdalene. You know, like the book of Barnabas. There's so many different books that they found, right, that they don't want to put to the forefront. Because in those books, in those texts, right, it shows that how these beings, these extraterrestrials came down here and they raped people and they created a whole nother hybrid. They created a whole nother, and this hybrid was barbaric. So when they came back, they was like, yo, we gotta civilize these people. They in the caves, they eating flesh, so they start giving them the law. This is where your Tanakh comes from. This is where the book of Leviticus comes from. This was the I'm trying to figure out how much commandments is it. How much commandments altogether? It's 613. Yeah, it's 613. Guys, I'm about to say 4 years. 613 commandments. Right? This is where that comes from. The book of Leviticus, the book of Exodus. All that comes from laws where they was like, look, that's why when you see those laws and you go back to ancient Egypt, when you go back to ancient Sumer, right, and you start reading those cuneiform texts like the Gilgamesh epics, you know, you start going into those texts, you see all the laws written right there. That they had to try to civilize these people. They're like, it was really unheard of for humans, right, to just eat flesh like that. But it wasn't unheard of for extraterrestrial, the lords and the gods, to eat flesh, because that's what they did. They were flesh eaters. So it was a gene mixing when it came to human races. And we all mixed in with those genes. A lot of it, especially us here in the West. You know, I mean, I know for sure I got white in my genes, just the 5th generation. I know who in my genes is white. So we had those spirit forces inside of us. So we want the flesh. Yeah, we want to eat meat. Chicken was hard to stop. Come on, let's be real. Chicken was, for me, I've stopped eating chicken about 4 years now. You know, but, and it took me a minute. It kept going back and forth, back and forth. Everybody got different biorhythms, you know, their body work different. You know, so that's, you know, but, you know, chicken, man, every once in a while, man, I have that, you know, that spirit come in me and be like, man, you know, Chinese food, this is like, man, you know. But did I answer your question, sis? Okay. Okay, we got this one. This will be the last question right here from the brother in the front. This is the last two. It'll be the last two. I had to see he was behind. That's okay. I tell you.
I'm talking about them people who's made with the porcine gene and the wolf gene.
Right.
Now, I mentioned this before. I be seeing all these Mukassus with these gray eyes. Who are they? What are they?
The Mukassus with the gray eyes, with the dot, right, are the beings that was mixed in with the wolf. That's where they get the eyes from. There was a being that was mixed with the canine. Now that particular being or that particular race of them. See, what happens is there were different experiments that was happening, right? And there was different species that was involved in these experiments. And this is genetic. Excuse me. It was like, oh, what happened? Like somebody got hit over the head. Like, nah, but what happens is there's different species of mucosas. You see some with green eyes. You see some with brown eyes. You see some with blue eyes. You see some with yellow eyes. You see some with gray eyes. And depending on what gene, right, that they came from, right, that's the result that you have. You have Pleiadians who had blue eyes, right, who came from the Pleiades star constellation, right? These Mukasus were intermixed with them. That was one of the base races that they actually intermixed in with. You know, they had pasty skin, white, pasty skin. They had yellow fur here, right? And so it depends on which one of them. Now, there's a certain breed of them that will be activated when certain tones go off. And those are going to be the flesh-eating ones. They don't know who they are. They don't know who they are.
Are those ones with the gray eyes?
Are those what?
The ones with the gray eyes?
Those are the ones with the gray eyes with the dots.
That's be activated.
Yeah, those are the ones that are able to be activated. They don't know who they are. Just like we don't know who we are. You know, we're mixed in with so much different genes. It's like a big one confusing gene pool. You know, and we have to try to figure out, we have to use our conscious mind to figure out who and what we are. And Wunuwa is that which figures it out. Because it's that reasoning part of the brain that activates. They say, okay, wait a minute, there's something wrong. This is why he gave the example in the genetic kiss book about the flesh. We were talking about flesh, right? It's called eating flesh, right? If you have a being inside of you, right, and that being decided to say, well, you may smell a smell. He gave example of smelling a smell. You may smell, go past a KFC. You smell chicken. Now you didn't already taste it before. You might have not tasted before. But if that gene that's inside of you, meaning your great-great-great-grandfather that's inside of you, if he was a flesh eater or he was an alcoholic or he was a smoker, right? When you smell that activates that person, right? And if you feed that particular force or that particular spirit, then that spirit will be the spirit that takes over the body. And the more and more you feed him, the more and more he will move up the chain. So what Wunuwa does, it brings you back to the center as you. It starts off with you, that conscious you, right? And if you don't watch and be mindful of the mind, you have to mind the mind. You have to go deep inside your mind and say, who's the one who's really making this decision? The same way how Panabab Anu gave an example, if you and your mate is arguing, there's certain beings that's in your DNA that clashes with this person's DNA because y'all have one tribes. Y'all tribes didn't agree, so you always arguing with your mate. You're like, damn, why every 5 seconds I'm angry at you, or you angry at me, or we fussing? Because there's some warring tribes that's happening within the DNA. They're clashing. Because remember, when you intermix with somebody, or when you give somebody a kiss, or you mix bodily fluids, you take on their personality. You take on their DNA. You take on their ancestors. We are all made up of our ancestors that we come from, which is our mother, our father, their mother, their father, their mother, their father, and it keeps going on.
We also mentioned that people who eat flesh, when they be activated, them beings, the flesh eaters, he said that they can smell the flesh in you.
Of course, because you are what you eat.
Sure, and that now if you don't eat flesh, you just do vegetables and stuff like that. Will that help? Will that
Of course. You would live longer. I mean, you would live longer. You know, if you don't have no natural sicknesses, right? You know, or no hereditary sicknesses. Of course, you will live longer if you eat healthy. You eat, and carnivores, right? does not live as long as herbivores. That's a scientific fact.
Sure.
But what they gave us the illusion is that, oh, I gotta get bigger, I gotta get this, I gotta eat flesh. I gotta eat meat to get big. That's the illusion that they give. But in actuality, no. All herbivores are bigger than carnivores. You can see that in natural nature. Okay. All right, he'll be the last person that, and then we're going.
What's up?
All right, I tell you.
All right. I have a question.
Tua.
We're here.
All right, so Kenny, don't set me up. Y'all know he'll study, he'll set you up. I'll be like, I don't know. All right.
Okay. What are the 9 etheric states? And what are their effects of, what are the effects of their vibrating and subdividing? I hope that wasn't too much of a setup.
No, it was.
Kind of,
yes,
but not too much.
It was. He was like, pow. Hopefully I didn't shoot you. Nah. Okay. One book I will refer to is Actual Fact number 17, which is Emotional Energy. Right? And there he takes you to the different etheric planes. Now, what he explains is that you have 9 abodes, which are planes, rims, and dimensions. 2, he doesn't touch us. He said he can't say it to us, right, in the public. The 2 higher ones, right? The 7 low ones he mentions. Now, we know as Nagado people, we are non-ether beings, right? And what that means is that we exist in different dimensions simultaneously, right? If anybody heard or studied quantum physics, because this is what we're talking about right now, right? In quantum physics, you have the ability, right, to be at different places at the same time. Because the law is, you can't exist in the same place at the same time on the same vibrations. But you can exist in the same place at the same time on a different vibration. And this is what's happening on this particular planet. When you're born with 4 that you're conscious of, which is the spiritual, the soul, the mental, the physical, right? And then the plane of the vital plane, the plane of force. I didn't mean to say the soul is the one above that. But those are the 4, which is the physical plane, the spiritual plane, the vital plane, and the mental, the mind. And those are simultaneously happening at the same time. Each one has its own rule. Each one has its own thing that it does. When you come here, you're using it all in one. Right now, each one of us are on the spiritual plane right now as we speak. But what is the difference? Why we say, oh, we got to get spiritual? Why? Because we now don't have the abilities, right, to be conscious of the spiritual plane. Meaning, you say, I want to communicate with my grandmother that passed a few years ago. Why can't I just talk to her right now? Because we have the abilities to do it by way of the planes or by way of ether. Everything boils down or breaks down to ether. When you're dealing with this physical planet, now they're changing it, but years ago, they used to say that hydrogen was the lightest element that existed on the planet. That's not even a fact anymore. They don't even teach that in college anymore. The things that Paa Parar Noon has been mentioning to us for years, for generations, they're starting to acknowledge it. The quartz is real. The Higgs boson is real. Quantum particles are real. And they are dimensions. They've proven it. They've done examples of, quantum physics. They've done examples of that. Meaning, The experiments, all by way of the Hadron Collider, which is a big machine that they have in Geneva, Switzerland, right? Geneva, Switzerland, like 17 miles long. This is how they open the vortex, the gateway. And if you do any research on that particular experiment, you'll realize that over 10,000 scientists and schools all over the world have funded that experiment. The whole world came together to make sure that happens. And over the last, I think 2008 was the year they first did it. And they smashed, it's called atom smashing. And they smashed it, they collided atoms. They said, yo, we gotta figure out how, everything started, the Big Bang Theory. How far does the universe really go? Is it other dimensions? Look at the reasons of why they created that machine. They'll tell you, they're not scared. We want to know, was there other dimension that exists within this dimension? We need to know, is it real? Is there other things that's out there? Because they don't have the abilities to detect 7, 8, and 9 ether. We do. We have the soul. The soul is the emotional seat. It's the one that has the ability to actually take you, right, to 7, 8, and 9. That's the reason in mind. That's why they're upset at us. Because we have something, right, as Asians, as Nagaros, as our Latino family, we have something that they don't have. And that's why they're upset at us. They fear us. Because we have the ability. When they die, they die and they just stay on the spiritual plane. That's it. That's where they end. They turn into ghosts. We have beings that reaches down for us from the higher planes, that extend their hands to us, meaning we always have a chance to make it as Nagaros. We have a mind. Don't think because you hear them talk about quantum physics, this and that and this, that they're the smartest people living on this planet. They're not. We are living it. We are living it. Quantum physics is something that's being observed. And it knows that it's being observed, for those who know about what I'm talking about. When I say they know they're being observed. Because the atoms act different when people watches it. That's the difference. So when we're dealing with the planes, right, we're dealing with higher abodes. The faster the vibration or frequency, the higher the abode. The slower the frequency, like this is the slowest frequency, the slowest vibration, which is the physical plane, the material plane. And you asked about subdivided. And let's give an example of subdivided, what it means when the plane's subdivided, right? You have this physical plane, which is just one ether. Just one ether out of 9. Not ether 1, just one ether out of 9 different ethers, right? You have that plane, which you have a body, a physical body. That body, which is made up of atoms and cells, molecules, right? It is subdivided. It has what? Water, right? Our body's made, we 3/4 water, right? We have tissues, we have teeth, we have hair, we have all these different levels of hardness, all dealing with just the material plane. So you got hydrogen, and you got, just say diamond. And between that, you have all these different vibrations all happening on the physical plane. They all have the same nutational rate in this physical plane, on this physical plane. Everything on the physical plane has its own, the same exact rotational rate, which is the spin. We're talking about something that's happening on what we call an etheric level, but something that's happening on the electron. Because they won't tell you, they can't track the electron. You like, well, the electron is something that cannot be tracked because it's 10,000 more smaller than the proton and the neutron. They only can figure out what the electron is doing, depending on the shape of the electron. When you go to school, you don't learn about the different type of electrons. You don't learn about the different type of hydrogens. They just teach you about one. Then you'll see the science of creation when you actually start to realize that, oh, what hydrogen is doing to become helium. That's one of the sciences of the liquid gold, Paa Parar. This substance had the ability to change its vibrational rates. It had the ability to go from ether all the way to gold simultaneously, changing to dust and just disappear. So those who was dealing with it, they were like, yo, what is this? It's something that used to run in our blood. because of the diet that we used to have. Was there anything particular?
Is that in any way relative to Nagaru having nickel and cobalt in our system that creates a gravitational field?
Of course.
Can you explain?
It relates to everything. It relates to the magnesium that's in our blood. It relates to the copper that's in our blood. It relates to the gold that's in our blood. It relates to the platinum that used to be in our blood. It relates to the platinum groups. If you look at the atomic chart, you'll realize that there's a platinum group, uranium. What's some of the other platinum groups? Uranium, not uranium, but no, not plutonium.
Chromium?
Chromium was one of them. I'm thinking a whole bunch of you got chromium, you got I want to say beryllium.
Those are transition metals.
Yeah, those are all transition metals, but it's the properties that's in the metals, right?
They're in group 6 on the element.
Right, group 6, exactly. And those particular properties that was in those elements, right, they have non-agent properties. So people call, the fountain of youth, all these things you was hearing, that was Paa Parar. And so when people took it, right, they would look more younger. But what they was really doing was warping time. You bend time and space when you intake the liquid gold. And all those elements has, it doesn't age, it doesn't rust like the elements that we intake now. That's why it's important, like I mentioned earlier, that we have to go back from whence we came.
Because they were saying, the scientific community says, that time and space is warped because of mass.
You said time and space is warped because of mass?
Yes, that's what the scientific community says. But our doctrine says otherwise, is what you're saying. That it used to be manipulated by Mafkazet, liquid gold, whatever you want to call it.
Right, because the minute you intake Mafkazet, your body moves at the speed of what you call, what the word I'm looking for, warp drive, right? Which is 186,273, like 1 over, than the speed of light, right? And why that's important is because once you start warping time, right? Or once you intake the Mafkazet, right? You're not going nowhere at all. You're actually standing in the same spot and space is moving around you. If you know anything about time in space living and scientific formulas, but nothing is really actually happening. You're just here and things is moving around you. You're taking those 2 points and making them one. But we're gonna
Tell
Okay, we're gonna end the class. Tower hat for coming out. Listen, let me request one more question. Let me request one more. This is gonna be the last one. And you can't even have 2 questions. One.
What's up, this?
What's up? I can't even see.
I'm wrong. You mentioned earlier that the spirit couldn't go across the salt waters.
Totally.
So I'm asking you, if I'm a Christian, and it came to me and said, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, man without form and void, darkness moving upon us. Well, the water and the spirit of God moved across the waters at that particular time. Was the water salted?
It's still salted now. That's a fact. The spirit moved upon the water, right? That's Genesis.
Exactly. So how does that do if the spirit doesn't move across the waters that are salted? That was the answer that you gave us.
Maybe you have to ask that question. But it definitely makes sense to me. It may be.
See.
the updates. For the people who wasn't here, we'll reread the updates. And we'll end it off with these updates. Current events. There's a war going on between the Ashkenazim, European Jews, pretending to be the real Jews, the Sephardim, Spanish Jews. If you look at the Palestinians and the Israelis, they are the same people and both speak Arabic and Hebrew, live on the same strip of land. They fight and are separated by religious belief. More and more scientists are revealing the truth of our doctrine. They admit that the obelisks are in Tanis, and the tallest obelisk is in Azum, Ethiopia. It has been said a warner or savior has been sent to every people. One did and true wind, or extraterrestrials sent from Asia. Doctrine. The extraterrestrials are giving us this information about who is who on the planet Earth so that it will be clearly shown that no one could have given us this information about genetic traits and markers about each race. Every week, Panabab the Moon reveals something else. For example, Aborigines have 3 lines or indents below the brow. These Indians have like a dimple in their chin. Each race has unique traits. Natural nature versus unnatural nature. If I say to you, I want to inspire you, what do you think that means? It means I want to put a spirit in you. A spirit, accepted or not, is not natural nature. Think of it this way. The Mukasus are not natural nature, although they are created from natural nature. A spirit is inside something of natural nature, yet it is not of natural nature. Spirits also cannot cross over salt water. It has something to do with the iodine. Now, you have what is called pure spirit, which would include a Holy Spirit and unholy spirit. Yet, they do not want to admit that because they do not know the difference when a possession is taking place, like during a church service. What good spirit has you rolling all over the floor and foaming at the mouth? Jesus. You have beings that come in the night and are referred to as incubi and succubi, who arouses or seduce women and men who are actually grays. The Igigi was assigned to Earth as their watch station, and that is what the name means. They violated the first rule and came down to the earth and had sex. Some beings live in the water, some in the air, some under the earth, as it says for the Adamites not to make any image or anything under the water in the heavens or the earth. Exodus 24. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. The graves were given a tripod path, which is why they were in all 3 places. We are dealing with graves groups from Regal and El Natak, etc. Groups of graves collect genetic materials because they make hybrid children because they don't feel. That is why they are succubi and incubi, because they have aroused people in their sleep to extract body fluids such as adrenaline, DNA from the semen and ovaries to create hybrids to live here on earth amongst people. These are people in Africa called the San people, who are the Tahites of Botswana, and you have the Kalahari Bushmen, who are of Zimbabwe. These people have all the genetic makers and you see as traits in the human race. They have the nappy hair of Negroid, slanted eyes of Asian, the 3 marks in the brows of the Aborigines, and the chin of the Indians. The first race was Negroids, had 9 species and seats. The next race is Aborigines and Dravidians, who have 8, and Asians have 7 species. The Caucasus women have 6, the Caucasus men have 5. There's another species that have 4, yet I will not mention that now. The more number of spiritual seats, the less spiritual. The less numbers of spiritual seats,